G'day everybody, welcome back to my shed, RBC. Just thought I'd bring you in to the end of the grinding saga. Tim's making a reamer for globe valves for steam drain condensate. I'm just putting a primary relief on it now. It's a little bit of an unusual setup, something I haven't done before, but this gives you a really good view of his elbow and a little bit of PNC grinding. For a homemade tool, look at the short sparks coming off it. That's as hard as the hobs of hell. But it's coming up with a very good finish, taking tentative steps because it started out at a concentricity by about 5 hour. Picker must have pulled over when it was heat treated. And we'll turn it off shortly and have a look and see if we want to go any further. I don't know that we've got the room to put in secondary clearance in there, and we don't want the land too wide or the reamer just won't cut. It's the first time doing something like this, especially not between centres, but I think it's coming out quite good. I'll move you in a bit closer.
Advertise some stuff.
Okay, a little bit of revelation. If I can find a pointer, the old drill bit will do. Grinding it from a cut and harden form, you have to take a fair bit of material off, and luckily you can see on that flute the leading edge of the land hasn't been ground, so it's not sharpened up far enough. Now if we continue on, luckily this reamer won't be used down in the small diameters, but if we go too far, the primary clearance there will virtually raise the heel and it'll rub without going in for a secondary cut, and I don't think there's enough meat there to easily, in this setup, grind a secondary clearance there. So we'll take a few more. This one you can see it once again up in the working diameters, just hasn't got all the way to the leading edge of that flute. There's another good example there, you can pick it up. But surprised at how hard that bit of material is for something that's been done at home. It's as hard as hell. That's just a straight 38A 60 Norton Alox wheel, and this is the wheels I featured in an earlier video. So much better than the cheap junk wheels I was using at the time, and still reasonably affordable. Okay, I'll let Jim get to work and pull back and take a bit more. I've been doing so. It's good giving someone to play with your TNC grinders. It's a completely different aspect of reading about or seeing it in movies. If you actually have hands-on, you get to appreciate what it's like to grind cutters. Now this is set up in a way I don't usually like. It's grinding off the cutting edge rather than on. But on this particular machine the motor's not reversible, so I just don't have an option. And we also see a whole lot of rubbish coming out of the belt guard. The poor old machine wasn't moved for about 12 years or 13 years previous to coming here, so all the crap shook loose in the back of it. And some of these tools that are required for renovating old steam engines just aren't really available or not available at a reasonable cost. I'll zoom back out again. We had to change quite a bit of the setup from what we had it for grinding annular cutters. The spindle is now set to 0 instead of 12 degrees positive in rocking the arm forward and back. We're using the height of the tooth to create the centre behind the cutting edge, and that's adjusted with the index and finger. And the angle of the reamer is set by rotating the workhead base. A bit about his Robinson rough guts affair, but good enough for this item. And good enough for the first cutter ground in this shed since we moved in. I'll go back to the where the rider mower lives and give you a panorama. We've actually got a few square feet on the floor now. Back in a sec. Okay, here we are again. I look at Jim's behind and tool and cutter corner. And you can see what was an absolute chamozzle last week has eased just a little bit. I've now actually got quite a bit of tooling up on the shelf, and as a consequence I've got some floor space, and that allows me to move around the shed a little bit easier and pack some more of the product away. It's been a bit of a learning curve, but at least now we're making sparks, and hopefully next week we'll be able to get some swarf going. Please like and subscribe. Bye for now. Hello again, back for a few more words. Sorry about cutting the video short yesterday, but Jim wanted to get the work done and out and away. I can understand that. And also I had to get the office lady back home. It was getting after 4 o'clock, and well, we have to get things done. The Reamer appeared to come out extremely good. Jim had a trial bush made of bronze, and it seemed to take quite a good shaving, even though there wasn't a lot of flute depth left after we cleaned the cutting edges up. The one thing we didn't do, and I was a bit reluctant there to spend the time, is put the Starrett cutter clearance gauge up on and check what we actually did achieve. And not that that's being a little bit academic. If you know what you've achieved and it cuts well, you know where to aim next time. So it's something to put into the memory bank. I was very lucky to get this. They're awfully expensive now, but I think I paid about $70, and it's nearly as old as me. Came in a pristine condition case with a set of instructions, and I think it's never been used, or if it has been, it's been very carefully used. But yeah, I didn't get that chance. We were just rushed off our feet. I'll try and run you through some of the setup. This is the second tool and cutter grinder I've got up and running after the Brearley, and Jim pointed out I've got a lot of slop in the ways that I've got to adjust out. In another video, 2 or 3 months time, I'll be taking all the carriage apart and cleaning it up. It's had 20 years service. It needs to be at least cleaned and adjusted, and possibly put the V-ways up on the shaper and clean them up. I'm not sure what will be required. This is a bit like a television simulated demonstration. The Reamer left with Jim, so I've put a long series annular cutter up there to let you see a little bit about the setup, and I'll zoom you in a second, let you see what it's done. The Reamer was for a set of globe valves on an old full-size steam engine, not a miniature like I normally build, and these globe valves are used for draining condensate return lines. I think that's correct, and the beauty about it is there is a rough standard that they're built to, but when you're making the tool to make the item just comes out at whatever angle the tool's made to, and you turn the plugs to suit. So that gives us a little bit of leeway. It was a nominal 7 degrees per side. If you go any less than that, it starts to be a self-gripping or non-release type taper, and you can't get the damn things to turn. If it's too steep an angle, then they don't seal off, so it's a bit of a payback either way. Jim actually had the pattern for the valves here, and he's making a jig up today to put it on the lathe and bore it as close as he can to the 7 degrees and just clean up with the Reamer. Now, as we're not after extreme accuracy, it's a built to fit item, not built to a blueprint item. We just went as close as we could, and also we were constrained with time. Jim didn't get here till well after lunch, and he wanted off the same afternoon, so we were stressed a little bit there. Just a simple old Rongfu grinder, axial travel. The base was set to approximately 7 degrees there. The blank that Jim had machined from silver steel and set up with his tool on the lathe to get as close to 7 degrees as he should was put up here, a dial indicator put up against the frame, and of course this is over a lot closer that way, and Jim brought his own dial indicator that had a large button about 10 millimeters on the end of it, and that made it easier to sweep the flute of the reamer to get the reamer set up reasonably accurate to the angle that he wanted. It was a straight flute reamer too, by the way, which makes that job a hell of a lot easier. I'd hate to be trying to grind a tapered flute reamer or spiral flute reamer in that session. The tilt of the work head was set to 0 just on the gauge here on a straight flute reamer with the wheel face vertical. The difference in angle, if you're out by half a degree on the horizontal plane, would be minimal, and I don't think it would matter a rat's behind. So we set it up roughly there, indicated that in here, and I'll take that off so I don't knock it for a deep 6 and wreck it. The second operation was with an old-fashioned surface gauge. Just used that to check off the centre height. The reamer still had the centre in the end of it, and both flutes were on the centre, so that means that the rear edge that we were grinding was horizontal and halfway around the surface, I suppose you'd say, and we're using the indexing finger to control the amount of clearance. I'll zoom you in a second, show you how that's done. It worked out not only easy, but it worked out really bloody accurate. And the reamer, and you get this quite a lot with homemade tools, it's very difficult without an oven to heat soak them in to get an even temperature. And this reamer tapered down towards the front substantially. It was only about 10 or 12 millimetres at the front and probably 25 at the back end. It was 19mm shank or 3/4 shank, and it had a bit of body either side. So you finish up with the outside of the flutes and the end of the reamer usually being substantially hotter than the body. So the position of the centre at the end could be out a little bit here or there, but we ground it anyway. And as expected, there was a loss of concentricity in it, so there was a fair bit of grinding. So all of this was, you know, a little bit on the rough side. So zoom you in and you'll see what we did. There, that's a little bit better. Okay, now you can see the head of the wheel. The wheel head was set to 0 degrees on the tilt, so the spindle should be as close to horizontal. And I think the machine got shook up a little bit in transport getting here, because a whole lot of shite flew out of the belt guard all over the phase converter. It was quite humorous. It's a bit like comedy bloody capers there. Okay, that will tilt you up a little bit further. Okay, the indexing finger was adjusted to the flute on the front, even though we were grinding the flute on the back. It was the easiest setup, and by varying the length of the indexing finger, you rotate the tool a little bit to get your clearance at the back. So we set it up to be dead level on the flute either side. That gives you 0 clearance, and then we retracted the indexing finger here about 1.5 to 2 mil. That dropped the other side and gives you clearance behind the cutting edge. And as I said, I would have liked to have put the cutter clearance gauge on there to give me a bit of experience on how many millimetres equals how many degrees. It's something that you want to put back into your noggin if you can. It was then just simply a job of moving the carriage to grind the flute up against the wheel, index to the next flute, run the carriage backwards and forwards. As you saw, the sparks coming off were very, very white, very short, and dissipating quickly. So to me that indicates there might have been a bit of manganese in the steel. It was as hard as shite. Very hard to leave for a homemade tool. Only impinging about 1/2 to 1 thou per pass, and it took about 15 minutes of actually grinding time to get the primary clearance, and we only ground the primary, not the secondary, on the full length of the flute, which means it then became concentric with the shank being held in the collet. As soon as it witnessed up to being fully ground, we decided that was enough. If we tried to put a secondary or any further grinding on, we could have wrecked the cutter, which is one thing we didn't want to do. There were several man hours already invested in it. The flutes were just milled in with a small end mill, a carbide end mill, while the tool was in the softened state, and you could see that the flute washed out back towards the main shank area. I'll say this, he did a very, very good job of keeping the flute just a little bit off centre, and I think it might have only had 1 or 2 degrees of rake, if any, which is what you want for the bronze material that is going to be reaming with it. Quite surprised with it. The old wheel wasn't dressed. It did a terrific job. I have the wheel angled just a degree or 2 so it grinds on that side only, and also that means that you grind on a very small area, so there's less chance of it overheating the thin edge on the reamer. My only regret is I don't have a reverse on this machine at the moment. The wheel rotates in that direction, the reamer rotates in that direction, so we were grinding off the edge, not onto the edge, and that's something I protest against. I say don't do it, grind onto the edge where you can, but we just couldn't do that yesterday, and it did form a burr along the leading edge of the flute. And Jim's got a little 320 grit hand finishing stone, a little triangular stone that I've shown you here, that I have before, that I have here, and he's going to deburr the reamer when he gets it home to take that wire burr edge off. If you've got the wire burr edge there, it fritters or it shears, and you just don't get a super sharp tool. So that's all there is for this simple setup. This machine is very versatile. I'll zoom out again, have a bit of a look at it. And part of the versatility of this unit, and I've said this a few times, is this main frame here is movable on the base, and by quite a bit. I would say that there's 150 to 180 millimetres of movement, and that increases the size of the work envelope that you have. And the wheel head has one long leg and one short leg, so you can flip the wheel head 180 degrees, and that moves the wheel back or forward substantially. So even though it's a short table and it's only got about 250 millimetres of travel, you can do a reasonable sized work object on there, and it's something I don't get with the Clarkson. You can put a wheel extension, wheel shaft extension on there to get a little bit more room, but quite often it's not enough, and I finished up making a sub table for it to get a bit more real estate. But the job was, to me, quite interesting, and my grinding shop was up and running. Drill bits, rotor broach or annular cutters. Later on today I'll be grinding a countersink, and I'll show the setup on the form relief grinder, and I've got the Clarkson ready to rock and roll. The Clarkson was the fallback for this particular job. Oh, I'm chopping my head in half there, probably be a big improvement. The Clarkson was the fallback, and we could have set the tool up between centres, angled the sub table on top of the main table, and ground it with a straight wheeler type 1A1, but this just lent itself to be a little bit easier, and I think it did turn out that way. We had a few extra tools set out, but there's no need to show them for this particular job. I hope that helps you a little bit. If you're willing to ad lib, to hop in and have a bit of a try, you can be quite successful with these grinders, and it's good if you get tools like this where you don't have to have spot on at the right angle. It gives you the ability to learn on doing the job. It was the first tapered straight flute reamer that I've set up. I did cylinder grind a reamer for Jim, be about 6 months ago, but I didn't have anything set up that I could easily grind the flute as it was a spiral flute reamer, and there was almost nothing left. I increased the angle from 2 or 3 degrees to about 7 degrees, and the flute wasted out at the front of it, and there was nothing to index into or indicate into, and there's no easy indexing for it. So he tried it in its cylindrical form. It would just barely take a lick out of the valves, but it wasn't aggressive enough to take chips, and that is what he wanted for this particular job. Okay, that's all now from our little crowd at the grinding shop. Jim said to me, good God, you're crowded in here. I've got heaps of cardboard boxes of shite yet to get rid of, but at least we're up and running. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye.